here live from Atlanta, courtesy of our friends at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. You can, if you're watching on Zone TV, you can see the hotel, the palatial setup that I have behind me, because I'm looking at the stadium right across from my road office view. It's going to be a lot of fun today. We're going to have Blaine Bishop, the hitman himself of Blaine and Mickey. He'll join us at 10:20. We will talk about this Field of Dreams game that Lucas brought up earlier, because I actually watched baseball last night, and it was spectacular. Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal wrote a great article about Tim Anderson, who hit the walk-off to win it last night. He'll be here at 11:20. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, 12:20 for his weekly installment. I got strip club food thoughts. I got Field of Dreams game analysis, Lucas. I got everything today, and it's all presented by Scoreboard Bar and Grill. How we living, buddy?
I'm good. I think you need to clean up your setup a little bit. Just airplane bottles strewn across the hotel room floor. Is this a work trip or is this a pleasure trip?
Yeah, that's much nicer than you want to tell people what you said to me during the commercial break before we started on live air. You brave enough?
Right. I'm good.
Okay, very good. He's already decided to recuse himself from a couple of conversations today, and he comes out swinging at me.
I'll have plausible deniability.
Yes, no, I've done well in cleaning up all of the many airplane bottles of booze that were strewn about me when I woke up in a stupor. No, of course not. This is a work trip. This is a business trip, baby. This is the first game day of the year. I'm fired up. I know everybody out there is too. If you want to get involved, by the way, 615-737-1045 is the number. 615-737-1045. I want your thoughts. What are you most looking forward to in this Titans preseason game? And we're going to get into it over the course of the next 3 hours. We welcome your participation as always, whether it be by chat or by phone. You are always welcome to voice your opinions here. But you know what, Lucas? I think this is the first road radio show that we've done together, and of course, we're going to be in Tampa, or I'll be in Tampa, basically all of next week doing the show. So we're going to have to fight through some adversity, because I'm looking at the clock right now and I'm on Eastern time, and this is going to completely and totally mess me up today. I have zero chance of keeping tabs on the clock.
Zero chance? Not even to give yourself a little bit of a chance?
No, I mean, one would think that just the element of an hour forward would not be enough to completely derail me, but I'm a creature of habit. You know, we work in a very fragile ecosystem. Our bosses tell us if anything goes wrong, just not tell me while we're on the air, because we're trying to make sure that things keep on track. So even an hour of time difference in Eastern time is going to completely jack me up today.
Well, I'm glad you're here on time. I hope you get to the game on time.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. 615-737-1045. What are you most looking forward to in this Titans preseason game? So I want to take this in parts. I want to make sure that we cover a lot of ground here, because I was doing my primetime show production meeting with my producer Reed last night on the drive down from Nashville, and I had a moment, Lucas, I swear it's as corny a thing as anything that's happened to me. I had a moment where I got like legitimately excited about seeing camp battle storylines advance. That hadn't happened to me in so long. It's been so long since we've had an actual preseason game. I'm watching Mac Jones dice up the Washington football team last night. I'm getting fired up about Josh Uche, the pass rusher, because I remember him from the draft, and I haven't seen a lot of these guys in a long time. And now we finally get to see some of these camp battles come to fruition, specifically with the backup quarterback. And that's kind of where I'd like to start today, because Logan Woodside is going to get the start. Matt Barkley, one would imagine, will play a substantial amount of reps. There will be a good deal of competition behind Ryan Tannehill, and it's going to matter this year for a great many reasons, not the least of which being, rather, that there's an additional regular season game, and your backup quarterback is more important than ever before in this 2021 season. Jacob DeLeon says he's fired up here at work in the Zone TV chat because he wants to see who wants it. Yes, this is the kind of football analysis. Who wants it more, even in a preseason game? We think Art Smith going to come out here and try to out-alpha Mike in his first appearance as an NFL head coach. I would love to see just an outright pissing competition in preseason game number 1 between Arthur Smith and Mike Vrabel. I'm actively rooting for it.
Yeah, do we get like a Baltimore Ravens situation from 2020? Can you imagine for a preseason game?
You got like Sam Ficken and Tucker McCann dancing on the Falcons logo in midfield.
Why I ought to squaring up.
Then we immediately have to put it on a poll who would win in a fight, Art Smith or Mike Vrabel, because we did that with Harbaugh.
I thought you were going to say Sam Ficken or Tucker McCann.
Oh, well,
I guess it would be who's the Falcons kicker?
Oh, is it still Young Hoku? Is it not still Young Hoku?
I hope so. He had a cool background.
Well, he was wearing Mike Vick's number. That was like people were offended by that. This kicker, and I'm pretty sure he's still around. I feel like I saw him last.
It's still cool.
Hunter Moss tweets in that my shirt and the room's wallpaper, the shirt that I'm wearing today, if you're watching on Zone TV, has him nauseated. Is the wallpaper behind me controversial? I kind of like the wallpaper. Maybe it doesn't look as good as I think it does, like the aesthetic of the room, of the hotel room that I kind of like the wallpaper. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, my shirt juxtaposed against it is pretty brutal, but yeah, it's okay. Listen, what are you going to do? You want me to re-wallpaper the hotel room? These people can't be happy with anything other than preseason football. 615-737-1045.
So should it be a fight between Art Smith and Mike Vrabel or Young Ho Koon and Sam Ficken?
Are you really tweeting out this poll?
Yeah. Which one should we do?
Well, I mean, probably for the sake of comedy, the kicker poll. Probably that. People
for the
accuse
sake
us.
of comedy, yes.
For the sake of, I mean, that's all I'm doing this radio show for. If I can make somebody laugh over the course of 3 hours, just one time with a bad joke, then I'm going to feel like we've had a successful day, and hopefully we'll be able to do that with some strip club food analysis later on in the show. But in the meantime, let's talk about the backup quarterback position. Austin Stanley has just texted me. The wallpaper looks like a 70s porno. Well, you know what? We got a casting couch in the Zone Studios, and nobody says anything to me about that. What do you want from me?
Boogie Nights vibes.
Every room I'm in apparently is an OnlyFans set. I'm just going to start an account for all these people, for all the aesthetics around me. 615-737-1045. Unbelievable. So the backup quarterbacks. Damn it, Lucas. I'm going to do preseason analysis no matter what people say about the wallpaper today. Logan Woodside and Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley, who has significantly underwhelmed as a professional quarterback since coming in as one of the most hyped prospects his junior year, coming back for his senior year at USC and having really the bottom fall out. I mean, in a big way, as a draft pick by the Philadelphia Eagles. Speaking about Mike Vick, he was drafted to come in there and potentially replace Mike Vick as during his Philadelphia Eagles stint. You had at the time Nick Foles, Matt Barkley, and Mike Vick in the Eagles quarterback room, and then he's bounced around the league since. He's had stints with the Chicago Bears. He's played for the Cleveland Browns. He's been a Buffalo Bill, and now he finds himself in Tennessee trying to find ways to unseat Logan Woodside, the unseatable, however we say it, the undefeated,
the ununseatable.
The ununseatable. Double negatives here on a Friday. Why not? But with Woodside, I saw an article on Broadway Sports yesterday, and Trey, I always forget Trey's last name, so apologies to him. But the article was about how the Titans haven't done enough to bring in people to push Logan Woodside. And I read that just in my mind thinking, well, who else do you want them to get? Look at the free agent quarterback market out there. Who are you trying? It is an anomaly to have a situation where you have Ryan Tannehill backed up by Marcus Mariota, or to start the season, vice versa. You have a team every year who goes out and gets a veteran quarterback who's had success in the league, like the Cowboys with Andy Dalton, and that's considered the best backup quarterback position in the league. And look how bad Andy Dalton was for the Cowboys last year. So when you're talking about Logan Woodside, or the case that that article was making, that the Titans haven't done enough behind him to push him, no, it's just that he's beaten everybody that they've put in front of him, be it Deshaun Kaiser or Trevor Siemian last year, be it somebody like Cole McDonald, the 6th-round draft pick, who doesn't even make it through training camp because Woodside is clearly so much further ahead and understands the playbook better than a lot of these guys. He has the advantage, Logan Woodside does, of coming in at a time where now our boss Paul Mason is texting me about the wallpaper. I can't get through legitimate analysis without somebody blowing me up about this hotel room. 615-737-1045. Lucas, how long do you think it takes us to get a noise complaint? Like we do a 3-hour radio show. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Atlanta. I have sound canceling headphones on, so I don't think I sound that loud, but you know that I'm being loud in here. My neighbors cannot be pleased.
That would be amazing. I'm praying for that to happen, your phone to start ringing off the hook with a noise complaint, or housekeeping to just come barging in there and start cleaning up all the airplane bottles while you're doing the show, and you just have to keep plugging along. Or better yet, you don't notice, and there's just a housekeeping person cleaning up behind you. This is what I hope happens.
Like I said, for the sake of comedy, we have to get more. We have to get as much as humanly possible out of these road trips presented by our friends at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. But in the case of the backup quarterbacks, Logan Woodside has been the best, whether you consider them to be the best of bad options or not. Logan Woodside is the one that the coaching staff trusts the most. And at the end of the day, even as you may not have seen him play a regular season game, even as you've seen precious little of him in the preseason, understanding that preseason defenses are not defenses that are schemed with the intent of really stopping the quarterback. They're just playing basic concepts and coverages and seeing how guys are taking the meeting rooms to the playing field and ultimately to the practice field and then into the preseason games. Who is competent at this level, especially in preseason game number 1. But we will see Logan Woodside get the start tonight. And I'm looking forward to seeing him because it's been so long outside of a practice setting that we've seen Logan Woodside legitimately compete. I don't know. And we were talking to both of them. Lucas, if you have that clip that I emailed you of the two quarterbacks talking about this particular competition earlier in practice the last couple of weeks, Logan Woodside, you'll hear first, and then Matt Barkley right after, talking about the Titans QB contest.
Yeah, absolutely. My whole life I've had to compete, and that's something that's really tried to raise my game, through competition. And Deshaun's been great. We've been working hard together, and learning things from him, and I'm sure he's doing the same. So it's been good.
Yeah, but I like fire hoses. I've been in this situation before where I've had to learn a whole new language in a matter of weeks. So I do have some familiarity being in Shanahan's offense before, and there's some carryover between the systems. So, the fact that they already kind of got all their installs and they're going a little deeper now is a little tougher than like a day one install, but it's part of the job, and, I'm embracing it.
That's Logan Woodside first, and then Matt Barkley in the same clip. I love that they just left. I love that producer Reed just left that without context. Matt Barkley saying, "Yeah, I love fire hoses," like he's got some kind of weird fetish with fire hoses, or like he wants to grow up to be a firefighter or something like that. That's what. Yeah, I love fire hoses, when it completely neglects that the question he was asked was, is it kind of like drinking through a fire hose right now, which is such a stupid saying. But anyway, the Titans backup quarterbacks will compete on the field today. We'll talk about the running backs coming up next. Blaine Bishop of Blaine and Mickey, and of course here on 104.5 The Zone, and Titans Talkback, because officially Titans game day coverage in mass begins today, and Blaine Bishop is going to be a big part of it. All that and more coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Coming up today on the 3HL.
It's finally here. It is finally game day, and we've got you covered.
Trash Talk Friday until 4 o'clock.
No doubt about that. At 4, we'll get you ready for Titans radio coverage of Titans-Falcons as we host the Lee Company Countdown to Kickoff.
Us? We hosting it?
Yeah, I don't know why. I like the other guys better.
Well, we'll take over.
Briefly.
Today, starting at 3 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
Score a major payday with BetMGM. Hey, it's Lucas Panzica, and it's the best time to sign up for the king of sportsbooks because they're giving new customers a shot at an easy $100. Register using code LUCAS100 and win $100 in free bets when you place a $1 moneyline wager on the Braves or the Nationals and either team hits a home run. Whether you're raising the stakes on baseball or wagering on your favorite soccer team, BetMGM is always ready for action. Enjoy innovative parlay selection builders, daily promotions, boost
Go check these people out, not just because they're making this content possible for you, but because they have the world's largest selection of bushwhackers. Football, music, everything in between. I did not know I had such an affinity for bushwhackers until I tried some of the selection at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. So I would invite you, if you're pre-gaming today, maybe God knows it's hot, a little something to cool you off and provide refreshment and vibe at Scoreboard Bar and Grill before today's preseason game. Of course, coverage begins here on 104.5 The Zone, right in the middle of 3HL, like 4 o'clock. They're going to roll right on through with Titans radio coverage, which I'll be a part of today, Lucas. I'm nervous. I get to sit in the booth with the great one, Rhett Bryan and Jim Wyatt. I got a little first time butterflies.
You should. That's a couple of legends right there.
Yeah. So I'm going to try not to embarrass myself on as a part of the Titans radio broadcast today. So we were talking about positions that we're watching. I've got 5 storylines that I'm kind of following going into today's game. We started with the quarterbacks, the backup quarterbacks, and remember that Blaine Bishop will join us here in just a second. We'll get the Hitman's thoughts on the matter and really how much preseason football has changed from now going back to his time in the league. But outside of the quarterbacks, Darrington Evans is going to be a fascination throughout the course of this training camp, this preseason. And as we get closer, really, once we get into the season, I want to know how the dimensions of this offense change with a legitimate receiving threat out of the backfield. I know people are going to tell me that Derrick Henry has been working on his pass catching abilities. I know that Derrick Henry, the highlight videos, you want to give him the credit that he deserves for putting in the kind of work that he has on that particular skill set in the offseason. But he's not ever going to be a natural receiver like somebody like his backup, theoretically, Darrington Evans, who played the position a little bit in college and then ultimately transitioned to running back and made big plays at App State on special teams as well. What is his role? How has he kind of taken advantage of the opportunities that he has been afforded? Because Derrick hasn't been doing a lot of work during training camp. He's been doing work, but not in the conventional sense of practice. It's Darrington Evans getting the lion's share of these reps right now. And it seems like he's really taken advantage. Mike Vrabel has been complimentary of him, but now comes the first opportunity to see him. And a lot of these second-year dudes, like Christian Fulton, like Darrington Evans, how can they take advantage of these critical reps in game-like situations that will ultimately solidify their position on this roster? Because we have a lot of unknowns, not just about the backup quarterback position, not just about the rookie class coming in. Remember that Caleb Farley will not play today as well. Mike Vrabel said in his press conference on Wednesday that Farley is not ready to play in the games just yet. So that'll be a situation to monitor. But outside of this rookie class, it's basically like having 2 rookie classes for every NFL team this year, having them go through the motions of a normal offseason into training camp and then a full-fledged preseason for them to kind of find their footing before the real games begin. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get involved with the conversation. 615-737-1045. Blaine Bishop will join us shortly, and we'll continue this conversation with him. I think that for Evans and the other running backs on this roster, you've got guys like Mekhi Sargent, who's, really not done much outside of take special teams and third string reps. You've got players on this roster like Brian Hill, who comes in as a different kind of a running back. He's very, very long. He's got great length. His straight line speed appears to be NFL caliber. He's had some good snaps, in fact, with the Atlanta Falcons when he was formerly on their roster. But how big is the gap right now between these two guys competing for the backup position behind Derrick Henry? Those of you watching on Zone TV, you see that I have this is not the unofficial depth chart for those of you who would start fires with, tight end 1 and right tackle 2 or all these things. Where is Dylan Radins on the roster? All of this stuff. No, this is just the 90-man Titans roster that I have come prepared for today. Some guys that I've highlighted. Mekhi Sargent, Darrington Evans, Brian Hill. That's really the bulk of the competition behind Derrick Henry. You know who the primary actors are going to be really on offense across the board. The only thing you don't know is who's going to start at right tackle once the season gets here. That is something that we'll get into later. Greg Cosell and myself got into a conversation about Dylan Radins playing on the interior offensive line that we'll touch on later in the show. 615-737-1045. Which position group are you most focused on? Which player are you most excited to see once the preseason games begin? I think Darrington Evans and Logan Woodside, how they work in conjunction with each other, understanding that they're going to be running basic concepts on both sides of the ball for the Titans and for the Falcons today. What I'm looking for is how they utilize him situationally, how Logan Woodside manages the kind of situations that they put him in. Do they let him start the entire first half and take it to the 2-minute warning and then allow him to operate the offense in 2 minutes? How do they focus on coming off of Wednesday's situational football practices? These are the kind of opportunities that they'll have the ability to replicate in a game-like situation. 2-minute offense, 4-minute offense. How do you find ways to extend the play or extend the end of the half when you've got 30 seconds left on the play clock? Do you have the presence of mind to get to the line of scrimmage, clock it, or do you do what they did against Jacksonville last year in the regular season, which is rush to the line with 10 seconds left, get a playoff, throw the ball to A.J. Brown and score a touchdown? How do they kind of manage these opportunities for the guys who will see snaps in a reserve role like Logan Woodside and Darrington Evans will? I think of the second-year guys coming into this game, I'm most intrigued by Darrington Evans. I'm not really sure how they're going to, when he's in the game, when it's him and Derek, and those are the top two running backs, if in fact they end up being the top two running backs, or at least Darrington Evans being the second running back behind Derek, how do they kind of balance giving away what they're doing when one of those guys is in the game as opposed to the other? When Derrick Henry is in the game, you understand that Derrick Henry is going to be the primary threat out of the backfield. You understand that if you're going to get beat by run action play calls, that Derrick Henry is going to be the person that you have to most focus on stopping. That's how you stop the Titans. That's how you make life difficult for the Titans, is you first focus on the thing that they come out wanting to do, wanting to establish first and foremost. And that is establish the run. It's not just them playing lip service to a cliche in football that's as old as time. No, this is one of the teams that's a rare enough thing that is an intentionally run first team in the year 2020, 2021. That's not really where football has been trending in the last couple of years. So how do they not give away the game when it's Derrick Henry in the backfield as opposed to Darrington Evans? How does Darrington Evans find ways to excel as a running back and not just as a receiving threat? How does he function in the screen game, which is Derrick Henry's best weapon as a receiver? It's not necessarily splitting him out wide to try and provide a distraction. It's not necessarily trying to figure out the defense based on where you align Derrick Henry, whether he's your man zone indicator or if you're working that off of the tight end, as football teams tend to do. How do they kind of find ways to bring Darrington Evans along and elevate his game so that he is a legitimate running threat and not just somebody who they know, like Dion Lewis, who retired today? That was the biggest issue with the Dion Lewis experiment, is that they gave away the game based on which running back was in the game. There was the rare Dion Lewis game that happened in the first half, like Carolina in the 2019 season, they went into that game with a Dion Lewis game plan, and it was fine until he fumbled the football. They ended up losing. They went with Derrick Henry the entire second half, and that's where they kind of established that offensive identity. But we'll talk more about the offense and more about the depth pieces on this roster later on in the show. In the meantime, we got the hitman. We got Blaine Bishop. He joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Of course, you can hear his radio show, Blaine and Mickey, directly after this one from 1 to 3. My brother, what is going on? Happy game day.
Man, I see you all jacked up and pumped up, man, about the preseason. First game, I guess we all should be because of there was no preseason last year. So, yes, a lot of excitement.
Blaine, it may be that, or it may be the buzz that I'm still rocking based on Lucas's allegations that I've just small airport bottles of liquor strewn about my hotel room where I'm doing the radio show right now. So it's unclear whether I'm chemically enhanced at this point or not.
They're visible?
No, they're not visible. I did a good job sweeping them up before the radio show started. I made sure they weren't on camera. I'm a professional.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure, man,
Blaine's out here I'm trying to do a comedy routine. Blaine's out here trying to play damage control to make sure I don't get fired. Blaine Bishop here with us on 104.5 The Zone. It's okay, Blaine.
Hey, man, I don't know what you did last night, man. I have no idea, man.
Well, what I did last night, Blaine, is I got wings from a strip club, but I'll tell that story later. That is not what we're here to do. We're going to talk about preseason football. In the meantime, I love Blaine so much. I love what he did.
You were hanging out. What was that player's name for the Clippers? I think
Lou Williams. I got the Lou Williams meal.
You were hanging out with Lou Williams?
No, I wasn't. I'll give away the game already. I wasn't physically in the strip club, but the strip club is on Uber Eats, Blaine. So I got the Lou Williams meal from Magic City, Uber Eats to my hotel room.
Oh, you have to enjoy it in Magic City.
The only question I want to know is, were the wings worth him going there to get some? Because that's the reason why he was there.
Well, and phrasing, better to say get some wings, because otherwise you're getting into dangerous territory.
Right. Get some wings. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
What I will say to you is, hell yes, they were absolutely worth breaking protocol for. Barbecue with a little lemon pepper seasoning. It comes with a whole baked potato as the side. Blaine, I thought I was going to die last night, but it was great.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to check those out. I'm gonna have to get some.
I'll bring some back for you to the studio.
Uber Eats.
Via Uber Eats. That's right. Blaine Bishop here with us on 104.5 The Zone. All right, Blaine. Well, I've been talking about quarterbacks and running backs to start our preseason coverage today. What position are you most focused on when they take the field against Atlanta?
Well, I probably have a vast array of guys I'm really going to be paying attention to. Naturally, with Tannehill not playing Woodside, not having a lot of experience at all, none in a regular season game, and limited, I guess you want to say, in the preseason the last 2 or 3 years. So I'll be watching him. It'll be interesting to see how he parlays that with, the backup offensive lineman and see if he gets some protection, since they've been having a little bit of trouble in practice. I'm always going to be looking at the kickers. It's going to be a battle all the way to the end. I think when you're talking about a championship caliber team, you have to have a quality kicking game. And then, the wide receiver battles from, the guys who may be, third, fourth, fifth, sixth guys, see if they can kind of stand out in a preseason game, whether they're getting the rock or not. We still could be open, don't get the rock. And then lastly, I want to see some of these defensive guys that have turned it up a notch and see if they can, if it, shows in a game. And that's T.R. Tart is one of the main guys I want to watch, just to see if he's that physical presence and dominating, guy that's been in practice.
Blaine wants to know if the T.R. Tart hype is real. I think we all do at this point in live action reps. What is the value for a defensive back right now, Blaine, given that this secondary is largely new? I can't imagine we'd see Jackrabbit tonight, but Fulton and Molden specifically, we know Caleb Farley's not going to play. What are you kind of looking when you enter the preseason as a player at that position? What are you trying to make your objective as far as what you're trying to accomplish as a unit?
Well, it'll be interesting to see who plays or not play. I think you're kind of assuming maybe Jackrabbit to play. If from my point of view, I would want my starters to play a couple series, and for me personally, probably both sides of the ball. But naturally, the offense gets treated differently, and the quarterback for sure. Because I want to start getting into the groove back of playing in the game and start working on the technique so they can actually see themselves in the game, see the things that they need to work on, make sure their mental, processing of information, whether it be the play, the formations, tendencies. You start trying to go down that road just like a broadcaster, start recreating those things that brought value and help you be a better player. And I'm always about the action. So, without preseason last year and guys doing fairly well, some coaches may lean to not playing a lot of veteran guys. But as a defensive back, man, I want to make sure I'm playing my technique. I understand where my help is. I want to be aggressive and also be a short tackler and make sure I have my feet, hands, and eyes where they need to be systematically every single play based off the call that is given to me.
And that's going to be critical. That's what they've worked so hard on during the offseason to kind of figure out their cues, their hand motions, basically to indicate what kind of coverage is. I've seen Jackrabbit doing that a lot with the younger players out on the field at training camp, how to, basically indicating checks and calls on the defensive side of the ball. And this is the perfect opportunity for them to have that rehearsal.
Yeah, no doubt. You're trying to sharpen those things that you've done at practice routinely and make sure everything's a lot faster. So you want to make sure you go through that process and make sure everybody's on the same page. And that's when, you have little communication gaps. We got some guys aren't processing as fast as they have to in a game, and because it's not practice. Everything's kind of sped up a little bit. So you want to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I know the communication skills have been a lot better with Bowen going around to the different meeting rooms. So I don't want to hear a lot about, communications at all this whole season, let alone in this first preseason game.
If we get in one press conference and they mention communication as an issue, Blaine, I'm gonna shoot this season straight into the sun because it's an immediate indication of failure. Oh my God. Yeah. Blaine Bishop here with us on 104.5 The Zone, host of Blaine and Mickey, and of course Titans Talkback will be on post-game after the preseason game concludes with Blaine, Mickey, Kevin Dyson, even Lucas along for the ride today. I know he's looking forward to it. Blaine, have you ever had a coach in a preseason game get too amped up, get too alpha, and try to legitimately compete in a preseason game?
The actual coach?
Yeah, the coach. I'm looking at Vrabel and Art today.
Come up the hype guy. Oh, you think Vrabel's going to get too hyped up for the game?
No, I'm looking at Vrabel and I'm looking at Art, and I know that they're both a couple of hugely competitive guys, and I'm thinking, all right, maybe a play or two they get over their skis and they try to rough each other up a little bit. I'm hoping for that because I need a little extra juice out of the preseason right now.
Well, naturally, both of those guys are very competitive guys in the coaching industry. They wouldn't have made it as far as they have. When I say competition, I think they'll have fun loving, shake hands, and talk at the midfield during the warm-ups and everything else. But when I say competitive nature, I would say trickery and things that you saw from practice daily that you couldn't actually do from both sides, from the head coach to former offensive coordinators and now head coach and Arthur Smith. I think that's where the competitive nature is. It'll come into play, not necessarily the actual, players. So I think maybe you go deep and play action pass the first game. Maybe you do an onside kick to get it on tape and say, well, I caught the coach slipping. Whether it's the special team coach or the head coach, it's all the same to the coaches because the head coach is responsible for everyone. And you know some of the tendencies and weaknesses of certain schemes and systems too. So yeah, I would think it's an advantage actually in my mind for the Titans, and I say that in that their backups may be playing against Falcons starters probably mostly in the beginning, and that's where I'm gonna be really tuned in, and that way you can see if some of these backups are actually legitimately could start in the NFL as starters going against starting talent. So on the other side, I think it kind of favors Arthur Smith in my mind. I think he wants to probably win it a little bit more. I know both are going to say they want to win, but he's trying to set the tone, and he may play players, starter guys, maybe longer than the Titans.
At B Bishop 23 is where you can follow Blaine Bishop. Hear him 1 to 3 today with Mickey Ryan, and of course, Titans Talkback comes your way in the post-game festivities. Blaine, it's good to have you on, buddy. I appreciate you taking some time. Enjoy it today.
All right, man. Make sure you save me some on the wing and bring it back to me, okay?
I'm bringing you back some wings. God knows else what's coming with the wings, Blaine, but we'll keep that for off air. Thank you, bud.
Okay. All right, man. Take care.
You see how quickly he ran away from that? Blaine Bishop. Always a good time. All right, we'll come back and we'll talk about these strip club wings. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone, live from Atlanta, presented by Scoreboard Bar and Grill.
We have the best broadcasters in the NFL. So why wouldn't you want Mike Keith and Coach Mack on your smartphone?
He can run this thing. 40, 45, 50, 45, Tannehill to the 41. What an effort
Hear every Titans game by downloading the 104.5 The Zone app.
attending the preseason game between the Titans and the Falcons. Later on, little Friday Night Lights. Things you love to see. If you want to get involved, 615-737-1045. What positions are you watching in tonight's preseason game? Blaine Bishop acted like he was surprised that I'd be excited for the preseason. I'm the most cynical of any host on the Zone. I think I hold that title. But even I'm allowed to get excited about preseason football. I don't think there's any crime in that. I think people, I'm sure we will all gather together on Twitter 7 minutes in and start to bitch about the level of play, but it's okay. At least we could do it together. That's the one place where Twitter can unite us and not divide us, is communally watching sports together and debating who the 5th and 6th wide receivers are. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Emmanuel, who calls us from Connecticut. He wants to weigh in about this Titans preseason game. What's going on, Emmanuel?
Oh, I'm relaxing. How are you guys doing?
Man, we're doing just fine.
Yeah, I'm excited for today also. There's a lot I want to see, so we'll see what happens. But how do you guys feel about Darrington Evans and Christian Fulton, though? Do you think they'll play a lot tonight, or?
I would say, I don't know. I guess, what do you consider a lot? Like, are you looking for them to play the full game, like a half? What are you thinking here?
No, I mean, I would say at least a drive or two. I mean, because they both didn't play a lot last year. So,
well, there was no preseason to play last year. Understanding that
like
COVID
season,
right? Well, one was hurt and the other one missed a couple of months in between his two stints on the field. Yeah, you didn't get to learn a lot about those guys last year. And if you want to weigh in, 615-737-1045. I would anticipate at least a drive, bare minimum a drive for both of those guys. You'll probably see more starters than you expect to see, or guys who are going to legitimately contribute, whether they're starters, whether they're the first guy off the bench at a position, rotational players. You'll see a lot more than I think you would expect to see under normal circumstances. But I think that ultimately we have a lot to learn about both of those guys, right? Darrington Evans missed the vast majority of the season dealing with injuries. Christian Fulton started on the field as a rookie, made a couple of good plays, had his first interception in his first home game against the Jacksonville Jags, started in the slot, had missed significant time due to injury, then was bumped outside because they still had to make up for injuries and guys who were not available, because Jonathan Joseph obviously was a starting outside corner at the beginning of the year last year, and we all know how that experiment went. So without Adoree Jackson out on the field, and once they cut Jonathan Joseph, Fulton was asked to play on the outside a bit more than he was later on at the start of the season. And we saw him look a little more comfortable on the outside than I think he did in the slot. Now, there's a lot more going on in the slot, so it's not like he can't learn and grow and develop if that's the role that the coaching staff ultimately sees him in. But he does have some competition there with Elijah Molden on the field this year.
As far as Darrington Evans, you'd anticipate him getting at least a few drives, right? Because this has been his training camp. It's been his training camp at running back as they bubble wrap Derrick Henry. So I'd imagine, especially in the first preseason game, they'd want to see a lot more of him, maybe even like a half.
I don't know about a half in the first game, because I think they're going to, because they'll pare the roster down significantly as we go through each week. At this point, it's not just like a straight 90 to 53 cut anymore. They've staggered it once again like they used to. So they'll look to see more of the guys, because there will just be physically more guys to play in preseason game number 1. So I don't know about a full half, but I would anticipate seeing plenty of work from Darrington Evans coming up tonight in Atlanta. So Blaine spoiled it for me. I was going to tell my story about Music City Strip Club wings here, but we did that last segment. Yeah. So for we put it out on a poll on Twitter. Have you ever had food? Have you ever ordered food at a strip club? And I've kind of skirted my own rules on the poll here, because I did not physically go to a strip club last night to eat dinner. However, because we're on Eastern time, I finished the primetime show about 10 o'clock Eastern. Atlanta is starting to shut back down again, unfortunately, due to the way that this COVID Delta variant is spiking. I saw a very, very disturbing tweet from Phil Williams at News Channel 5 this morning about just being no ICU beds in Middle Tennessee right now, which is deeply concerning, given that we're starting to get close to football season and understanding that people will gather en masse at sporting events. I'd be curious to see what kind of numbers result from something like the Music City Grand Prix, but a conversation for another day. Long story short, lot of stuff shut down in Atlanta again, and everything seems like it's going the way of a 10 o'clock, unofficial curfew. So I'm desperate for food. So I log on to Uber Eats last night while I'm watching Mac Jones just dice the holy hell up out of the Washington football team's second stringers in some preseason action. And I see Magic City Kitchen is the first thing listed on Uber Eats. And I click on Magic City Kitchen because I'm like, this can't be like the Magic City. This can't be the kitchen of the most famous strip club in Atlanta. Sure enough, it is. And the first item on the menu is the Lou Williams meal. It's 10 barbecue wings with lemon pepper seasoning and a whole loaded baked potato. That comes as a part of the package. I got it. I thought I was going to die, but it was so good. No wonder he broke protocol. Left the NBA bubble to go to Magic City just because he wanted some dinner. I understand it.
Price range? Is it like a Roos Chris type of price range or like a Buffalo Wild Wings type of price range? Because they could probably drive that thing up.
They could, and I paid well, this is funny because this is going to end up on my expense report, and our bosses are going to look around and be like, what the hell were you doing at Magic City, and why are you trying to write it off? But I wasn't at Magic City. I was in my hotel room. I was safe. But yeah, I opted for it was not outrageously expensive. It was probably more than your average 10-piece wing set would cost, but there were things like lamb chops on there for like $46. There was a nice surf and turf meal.
Wow.
They had the oh yeah, no, this was to the nines. I mean, you're talking about like you normally associate strip clubs with grimy and dirty, and all of them are.
That sounds like a classy joint.
It seems. I've never physically been in it myself. Now strip clubs in Atlanta, it's like what people do for happy hour down here, because my girlfriend used to live down here. They go to Magic City Mondays. They go like hang out at Magic City.
You're gonna
on a
get
Monday
back
after work with all the coworkers,
and it's gonna be Buck. We see you expensed $1,100 at an establishment titled Magic City. If you wouldn't mind explaining that a bit.
Yeah, it's just a costume shop, just a costume store. It's Magic City. What are you gonna do? Yes, I got the Lou Williams meal, and it made me very happy. So we asked people, have you ever eaten food at a strip club? And some of you are willing to tell on yourselves, which is hilarious. Lebowski says eggs and legs, which is such a kegs and eggs turned to eggs and legs. Indeed. Cronky on YouTube says, not my proudest moment, but had barbecue meatballs at Brass Stables in Printers Alley. Oh dear God. That sounds like it might be problematic both during and afterwards. Anyway, we'll come back. We'll talk more preseason football. We'll also get to this Field of Dreams game that I really want to talk about, because Tim Anderson and the Chicago White Sox against the Yankees last night, they put on an absolute show. Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal, who wrote a great piece about it this morning, will join us at 11:20. Don't miss it. It's 104.5 The Zone, presented by Scoreboard Bar and Grill.
The Titans and Falcons go at it in the first preseason game of the year. Continuous coverage all day today.
Into the end zone. Touchdown! Titans!
With kickoff at 6 p.m. on your home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone. Studio. Win with WinBet. WGFX Gallatin, Nashville. The Titans and the Falcons. Kickoff is tonight at 6 on your home for Titans football. Trending now at 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:04. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans' first preseason game of 2021 is tonight at the Atlanta Falcons. Titans radio coverage from Atlanta will pick up after 3HL at 5 p.m. with a 6 o'clock kickoff. Titans talk back with Mickey Ryan, Blaine Bishop, and Kevin Dyson in his postgame right here on 104.5 The Zone. And the Buck Reising Show broadcast live up until 1 from Atlanta. Former Titans running back Dion Lewis is retiring from the NFL, according to Adam Schefter. Lewis spent 10 seasons in the NFL, won a Super Bowl with the Patriots, and spent the 2018 and 19 campaigns with the Titans. Some preseason action last night. Rookie quarterback Mac Jones made his Patriots debut, a 22-13 win over Washington. Jones was 13 of 19 for 87 yards. And Joe Flacco got most of the reps for the Eagles in a 24-16 loss to the Steelers. Former Tennessee quarterback Josh Dobbs was 5 of 6 for 30 yards for Pittsburgh. The Field of Dreams game lived up to all the hype in Dyersville, Iowa. Tim Anderson crushed a 2-run homer into the corn to walk off the Yankees 9-8 for the White Sox to win, and the Braves fell 12-3 to the Reds. They are 1 game back of the Phillies in the division. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The most successful streaming and podcasting talent in Nashville is Buck Reising. And now he has a radio show to go along with it. Right here, it's Buck Reising on 104.5 The Zone.
You ready, Mace? Party people in the place.
Connecticut, Houston, wherever we're getting our callers from. You guys have been active today. Welcome into Titans Game Day. Preseason, though it may be, here on 104.5 The Zone. Live coverage from Atlanta of this show for all 3 hours, even with the 70s porn set backdrop that my hotel seems to have. Presented by our friends at Scoreboard Bar and Grill, the world's largest selection of bushwhackers. Football, music, what more could you ask for at Scoreboard Bar and Grill? They make this coverage possible, and we'll be making our Tampa coverage possible next week. So we're incredibly grateful to them and to you guys for interacting with us. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation today. What are you looking for in tonight's preseason game? We've talked earlier about the quarterbacks and the running backs. Got into the secondary conversation a little bit with Blaine Bishop in hour 1, but we want to hear from you. Don't forget that Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal, who covered the Field of Dreams game last night and wrote an incredible article about the guy who hit the walk-off homer, Tim Anderson, for the Wall Street Journal. So much so that I signed up for a Wall Street Journal subscription. I did. I already pay for the Times. I'm not above paying for good journalism. The Wall Street Journal got me with Jared Diamond's great article yesterday on the hero of the Field of Dreams game. 615-737-1045. Coach Mack coming up at 12:20 as well. Don't miss out. Let's start with Matt in Nashville, who wants to weigh in on the Titans and the Falcons here in Atlanta. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, what's up, man? Real quick, I hope you were listening to Future's song Magic. It's all about Magic City while you ate your wings. But second of all, I don't know if this has ever happened, but I went to Appalachian State, and I'm excited to see Darrington Evans and Kendall Lamb represent the Mountaineers. I don't know if we've ever had 2 players on the same team before, but that's what I'm kind of looking forward to, and go Titans.
Hey, I appreciate the call. Yeah, no, I did. Future can be heard no matter where you go in the city of Atlanta. Future just seems to kind of constantly hum in the background. It's kind of like Nashville with Alan Jackson. Like somewhere in Nashville, there is always an Alan Jackson song playing, it feels like. That's Future down here in Atlanta. So there was, I'm sure at some point, the backdrop of, it was mostly Mac Jones throwing all over the Washington football team last night in the preseason, but there were certainly some vibes around. I think my Uber driver was playing Future when he pulled up with my Magic City wings. But yes, to have two small school players, 2 guys from App State, particularly with Kendall Lamb, who's competing at right tackle, and Darrington Evans, It's got to be cool if you're an alumni of schools like that. And you get to see him play on a semi-national stage. And certainly the game will be carried tonight on 104.5 The Zone. Pre-game coverage starting at 5, right in the middle of 3HL. We will take you up until the start of it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the offensive line conversation. In fact, before we get to Jaden and Laverne, I want to play this clip of Greg Cosell, because somebody we're not really talking about in the right tackle competition right now is Dylan Radins. Dylan Radins, who's slotted on the unofficial depth chart. Don't make too big of a deal out of it. It's just unofficial. But it says Dylan Radins is Nate Davis's backup at the right guard. And so I asked Cosell, actually Cosell asked me about where Radins had been lining up during camp, and this was our conversation.
Who is the first team right tackle right now?
That is Ty Sambrailo right now.
Okay. So where is Radins playing tackle, or are they moving him around?
He is a backup right guard to Nate Davis, according to the unofficial depth chart that they handed us all at practice the other day.
Because it's funny you say that, because when I watched his college tape, just for fun and games here, I actually thought, believe it or not, and it's interesting they moved him inside, I actually thought he could be a great center. Now, I don't fancy myself by any means, Buck, as an offensive line guru, so take it for what it's worth. You know, a lot smarter people than I'll have a much better point of view on it than I. But I kind of thought of Mitch Morse, who came out of Missouri as a 3-year starter at left tackle, went to the Chiefs. He's now with the Bills. But right away, the Chiefs made him an offensive center, and that's the position he's played in the NFL, and he's a good one. I kind of thought of Dylan Radins that way. So I find it interesting they moved him inside, because obviously he must be getting snaps in practice at guard, right?
Oh yeah, no, he's worked both at tackle and okay, more than anything inside right now.
So it's interesting. Again, doesn't make me right or wrong. You know, we'll see how it all plays out. But Sambrailo right now is the starting right tackle, huh?
Yeah, I can see the hot take bubbling beneath the surface, Greg. You want to come out and say Dylan Radins is center? It's a take. It's a take, no matter how hard you try to fight.
That one is more of an opinion than anything, because, and again, like I said, I'm not a guru with the offensive line, but just that's what I thought watching his tape in North Dakota State.
That's Greg Cosell of NFL Films talking on our podcast every Wednesday, the install, about Dylan Radins. So right tackle, the competition seems to be right now primarily between Sambrailo and Lamb as they try and bring Radins along. He's been playing a lot of interior, but both at tackle and at guard throughout the course of training camp. We'll see what we'll see what they decide to do with him tonight when they trot him out there. Let's go to Jaden, who's been waiting patiently in Laverne and wants to weigh in on this Titans preseason game. What's going on, Jaden?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Man, we're living great.
What I'm the most excited to see for this game is definitely the DB group, because there's a lot of young guys there, and I saw Chris Jackson get burned a lot last year. I've heard some great things about Breon Borders, all of that. I'm just excited to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, we can do that for you. Appreciate the call, Jaden. 615-737-1045. I'm going to spend a lot of time on the secondary in the third hour before we get to it with Coach Mack at 12:20. But specifically, Chris Jackson looks like he could be a starting corner in nickel situations. Chris Jackson is making that push right now. Now, it's entirely possible that guys like I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, Elijah Molden. Elijah Molden makes a push. Christian Fulton finds himself as a starting corner in a nickel situation if Caleb Farley is starting on the outside. There's legitimate competition in there. Now, Chris Jackson, listen, as a 7th-round pick out of Marshall and tossed into a starting role right away. Remember, he played more defensive snaps than any Titans rookie last year. So, yes, I'm sure you and we all did. We all saw Chris Jackson get made to look inept is not the right word, but he looked overwhelmed out there. And it's completely understandable why that was the case. Now, there needs to be growth, certainly. And he's had a decent camp so far. He's versatile. He plays both corner and can play at safety. But this secondary is going to be a fascination, and one that I know Titans fans are going to be hyper-focused on, because you have a lot of interesting pieces. It's kind of like the wide receiver group for this team right now. You got a lot of interesting pieces. It's just at this point, both you as a Titans fan and the coaching staff, they're trying to figure out where all these pieces fit best. 615-737-1045. Coming up next, though, we're going to get into this Field of Dreams game, because what took place last night on Fox, I was very confused by. I had no idea what was happening until I turned on the television after preseason football was over. I saw people tweeting about it. I'm like, what the hell are they doing in Iowa? We'll talk about it with Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal, who wrote a great piece on the hero of last night's game, Tim Anderson, and how it wasn't about a Field of Dreams moment for him. It's about how he made his own moment in the middle of baseball, baseball, what do you want to call it? Just baseball, one of the finest performances, one of the finest featured moments that I think baseball has had in a long, long time. We'll get into it with Jared Diamond coming up next and continue the Titans conversation. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone, live from Atlanta, presented by Scoreboard Bar and Grill.
The NFL preseason is finally here, and the Titans pay an early visit to Julio Jones' former team, the Atlanta Falcons. Mike Keith and Coach Mack have the kickoff tonight at 6.
Touchdown! Titans!
On your home for Titans football and flagship for Titans radio, 104.5 The Zone.
104.5 The Zone. We'll get back to that conversation here in just a minute, but I want to talk about one of the coolest sporting events that I've seen in quite some time with Jared Diamond, who covers sports for the Wall Street Journal. At Jared Diamond is where you can follow him on the socials. Jared, we don't necessarily follow MLB day to day down here in Nashville, unless the Braves are doing something to make people suffer. So I had no idea that this Field of Dreams game was on. And frankly, I'm 28 years old. I had no idea what Field of Dreams was until I turned on the broadcast and was kind of learning about it through social media. How did somebody like yourself consume this event that really seemed to hit a bunch of great notes with people who love baseball?
Yeah, it was a huge success, and in a way, I'm a little surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but when this was announced a couple of years ago, this event was supposed to have happened last year and was postponed because of the pandemic. I think there was certainly people that thought it was a gimmick, that didn't think much of it. What is this really going to be? And I give MLB a lot of credit because the show last night was really a big success in every way. My understanding is the TV ratings were extraordinary for a regular season baseball game. It didn't feel like a gimmick. It hit the right notes. The game turned out to be incredible with a phenomenal ending with Tim Anderson hitting that home run. Yeah, it really worked. It worked out great, and it just sort of showed that people do still have some nostalgic feelings for baseball. Sometimes it comes back up to the surface.
So I think that's such a fascinating conversation about the sport and about MLB in particular, because it's such a fine line between nostalgia and their constant attempts and necessary attempts to try and attract young people to the game. As somebody who's kind of just gravitated away from baseball throughout the course of my lifetime, and many people in the same age demographic seems like feeling the same. I thought that the play that they're looking to work out, the conversations between MLB and Barstool about Barstool being able to carry a game, whatever you think of Barstool. I understand people have their reservations, rightfully so, but how they're kind of trying to balance between that nostalgia and trying to attract this demographic that so desperately eludes them.
This is the line that baseball has been trying to thread for years, and it is really tricky because on the one hand, there is no sport that has the history of baseball. There's no sport that is rooted in its history the way baseball is, and so many of its core fans are people that love the game because of its history, because of its tradition, because of its ability to link generation after generation, and yet we know that baseball has a demographic problem. The audience is old, and it's getting older. It is increasingly white and not attracting young people of color the way that the NBA and the NFL is. And if baseball is going to survive and remain relevant in the future, it needs to get younger. It needs to get more diverse in terms of who's watching and who cares about it. So baseball's continuing to try to figure out, how do we attract new people without alienating the people we already have? And it doesn't always succeed. We're sort of seeing this now with the rumors of this potential Barstool partnership, where on the one hand, there are a lot of young people that love Barstool and for whom this would be a great way to get back into baseball. But on the other hand, there's tons and tons of people out there as well that feel very strongly against Barstool. And how does baseball navigate that? That's just one example. But this exact story is playing out seemingly all the time, trying to balance the tradition with the new. And it's not easy.
Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Jared, the article on Tim Anderson, speaking of demographics, and ironically, a young black person was the hero of the game last night, given that the demographics, as you've just described, are older and wider. But the article on Tim Anderson was so good that I signed up for subscription to the Wall Street Journal myself. Everybody out there should do it. They're doing great journalism there at the Wall Street Journal, and that's the best way to support it, is by making sure that they are supported in the work that they're doing. So you wrote this article about Tim Anderson and his significance in this game between a young, up-and-coming, diverse White Sox team, ironically enough, headed by one of the oldest heads in baseball, in the sport right now, with Tony La Russa. And we'll get to that storyline a little later in this conversation. But But in going into this story, looking to write it pregame and then understanding how it ended, why was Tim Anderson the approach and his story the one that you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, that worked out for me pretty nicely. That Anderson
hell yes,
hitting that home run. That was very fortunate. I find Tim Anderson to be a fascinating figure because he represents exactly what we were just talking about. He is the new. This is a guy who has no connection to the history of baseball. He did not inherit a love of the game from his father and his grandfather like so many people have. This is a kid who didn't really start playing baseball until he was 16 or 17 years old. He was a junior in high school who hadn't really played baseball before that. He loved basketball. He loved football. He didn't care about baseball. And yet he has developed into a star, and not just a star, a guy who cares a lot about trying to grow the sport, trying to show that, hey, baseball isn't just for white people. It isn't just for old people. It can be cool. It can be fun. It can be exciting for the younger generation. And he has taken it upon himself to show that to people. And he is the perfect ambassador for that role because he is young, because he is black, because his experience with baseball is not sort of what we think about in terms of who is playing baseball. So for him to go on the big stage like that alone was worth the story to me. This guy getting a chance to go on this big stage, A Field of Dreams, a movie that he also has never seen and says he has no interest in watching. And the fact that he then goes out and hits the walk-off home run just made it even better. But Tim Anderson is the kind of guy that's part of the future of baseball. And I think it's amazing that people got to see him last night. The White Sox are going to almost definitely be in the postseason this year as well. And I hope that people sort of watch this guy and realize, hey, this is what the game could be.
You know, it's so interesting that he's decided to take on this role because he and players like him, whether you're talking about any of the young and exciting players that are kind of coming onto the stage and understand that they need to be marketed in a way that Mike Trout maybe necessarily hasn't taken advantage of because of how he believes he needs to go about his job. And that's fine. You can have both approaches, but the sport suffers if you don't have these faces that you can attach yourself to when so many of us, I feel like, are fans of players as opposed to teams because those are the people that we follow on social media and such. But like, I remember going back a couple of years, I think it was like 2019. Tim Anderson did an interview with Dan Lebitard, and he called baseball a boring sport, and it caused these kind of waves around it, given that one of the most exciting up and coming players thought the sport that he played was boring. I guess where did that kind of transformation in him to having something like that out there publicly that can diminish the sport that he plays and turning it around and trying to be an ambassador for young people in the game?
Yeah, it shows that A, he knows the issues, and B, cares about the issues, and C, wants to change them. And the good thing for baseball is that he's not alone anymore. When Tim Anderson came out there and said baseball's boring, that was so shocking to hear a player say that. But now more and more we seem to have players that understand that, hey, the game should be more exciting, could be more exciting. And the reality is there's never been, at least in recent memory, a time where there's this much young talent, young, exciting talent in the game. You look at guys like Fernando Tatis Jr. and Ronald Acuna Jr. and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani. There are incredible baseball players, young players that are changing the game that are all out there right now. And it's incredible for baseball. And what's great is those guys do seem to want to make baseball better. And you mentioned Mike Trout. And Mike Trout, for so long, has been the best player on the planet. But he has never taken an interest in marketing himself individually, which is his prerogative. He's allowed to go about it that way. He's the kind of guy that wants to show up at the ballpark, put up his numbers, go home, and hopefully one day win. Something the Angels have not been able to do with him. But they have not been able to sort of put him out there as this is the guy that's going to make baseball cool. You know why? Because Mike Trout isn't cool. He's an incredible baseball player, but he's kind of a boring guy. Yeah. It's fine. But it's great that guys like Anderson and Tatis and Guerrero and Acuna are both great and cool.
Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal here with us on 104.5 The Zone. So as somebody who gets paid to tell stories and enjoys telling stories, what am I to make of the story of Tony La Russa and this White Sox team, and how far they have come, given how unlikely a marriage you would have thought that would have been? I don't know what your opinion was when the hire was made, but I was fascinated by the decision by the White Sox to go with somebody who really just seemed to run up against what the team itself, the players on that team, represent.
Yeah, it was very shocking that he ended up being the hire, and I think the reason it got so much negative attention, well, there's a few reasons, but one is that it didn't feel like it came from the front office. The perception, and really it's true, is that this was a decision made by the owner, almost in some ways going over the heads of the front office, or putting his foot down, saying this is the guy I wanted to hire, which, again, he's the owner. It is his right. But
sure,
he was the exact opposite of what it seemed like they needed. This is a young, up-and-coming team with a lot of young Latin players, and Tim Anderson being a young black player, and suddenly you're bringing in this 76-year-old dude who hasn't managed in, a million years, in 10 years. Why? How? Is he really the best candidate for the job? And look, so far it's worked. The team's been great. They're in first place. They probably would have been with a different manager as well, but it seems like the players respect Tony La Russa, and Tony La Russa has, seems like at least, has sort of taken it upon himself to try to relate to these players and get to know these players. Look, he would not have been my choice if I were running the White Sox. I think in some ways it was a strange choice. It still feels a little strange. So I'm not going to argue with results, and if they end up winning a World Series or going deep in the playoffs, I'm not going to argue.
He is Jared Diamond of the Wall Street Journal. He's been kind enough to give us some of his time today. He's doing great reporting on the sport. Well worth your time. Sign up for a Wall Street Journal subscription, and I promise you will not be disappointed. Jared, I appreciate you doing this short notice, and keep up the excellent work. We'll be reading.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks so much.
Jared Diamond there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Man, so Lucas, you didn't watch the game because you guys had the high school media day going on there at Party Foul, which looked like a great time, by the way. You guys absolutely killed it, I'm sure. I was sorry I didn't get to hear more of it because I was driving down yesterday to get to Atlanta, but you didn't have the opportunity to watch this thing.
No, it was on in Party Foul, the TVs. It was a great event. You're right. 5 coaches, 6 players, 4 future SEC football players. It was a great time, but that was the only downside. Didn't get to watch the game because I actually really was looking forward to it. I wanted to check it out, and it sounded like it lived up to absolutely everything. We make so much fun of the MLB and how they just botch everything they do. Sounds like they actually kind of got this one right. I did go back and watch some highlights. It was cool.
Yeah, people like Lebowski saying in the chat on YouTube, where you can interact with us on Zone TV, coming from someone that is bored of MLB, I thought last night was wonderful. The simple setting, toned down graphics package, and smaller crowd made it feel nostalgic in a good way. Now, we just had Jared Diamond on, and I was looking for a terrible pun that I could make about his last name being Diamond and him being a baseball writer, but he seems like that he's an excellent reporter, but he seems a bit too serious for me to be making diamond puns at his expense, so I avoided that. But it was funny because they held this game in Dyersville, Iowa, right? Because when I turned this thing on, I was watching it. It's like, why the hell are they playing baseball with a cornfield backdrop? I have never seen Field of Dreams. I'm completely ignorant of the theme of the game last night. So I just flipped it on Fox because I saw people tweeting about it. I'm like, what am I watching here? Why is this what is it I'm looking at on the television screen? And then I sat and watched it, and it was what, 7-8, I think, at the time, that Tim Anderson hit the walk-off home run to take the lead and end the game at the bottom of the ninth. So the drama was there. The baseball was excellent. And the setting was, it felt like old school Americana. And even in making it something that felt and was intended to feel dated, it had this kind of gravitational pull to it that I wasn't expecting. So how much do you have you seen Field of Dreams?
I had never seen it until college because I'm like what Jared Diamond's talking about. Baseball is generational, right? You're linked to it by your father and your grandfather. That was never the case for me. My father's not from America. He doesn't know what the hell baseball is. He doesn't care for it. Yeah, and same with you. So I got to college. One of my best friends who is baseball diehard, everything is baseball going back generations. Well, he was appalled when he found out I had never seen it, so he made me watch it. And if you watch the movie, you'll get what happened last night, I think, a lot more. And it's a good movie. Like, I appreciate the nostalgia and the romanticism of it.
So we put it on a poll. Does cornfields make baseball more romantic? At Buck Reising is where you can vote on it, because I will admit the romance was lost on me a bit until, the baseball was exceptional. And I love Tim Anderson. I want more bat flips. I want more clapping after you hit. I think he hit his 13th home run of the year in that game last night to end it against the Yankees. And I mean, who doesn't like to see the Yankees lose? 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. What was your thoughts on the Field of Dreams game last night? How much of the audience do you think I've offended by saying that I haven't watched Field of Dreams?
A good portion, just considering how many of my friends I offended when they found out I had never seen it. But
I just, this is like my thing. I go back and forth on this, like a movie from 1989. When am I going to come across that on HBO Max? Like, is Field of Dreams just going to happen to pop up, or am I going to be buried in yet another series? Because that's the kind of stuff that I'm watching.
You've seen The Sandlot, right?
No.
Oh, you've never seen The Sandlot?
No.
Have you ever seen a baseball movie? Can you name one that you've seen?
What was the one that was I had it on VHS, Angels in the Outfield. I've seen Angels in the Outfield, which is a classic.
Gordon-Levitt, yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolute classic. So, I understand that if it's in the same mold, The Sandlot and Field of Dreams, as Angels in the Outfield, then I would probably love it, because I loved Angels in the Outfield. But a lot of these, I don't seek out these older sports movies, because Hoosiers is an institution in the state that I was born in Indiana. And I think Hoosiers stinks. And it doesn't add up, by the way. Like the whole premise of the movie doesn't make sense to me. It's not for me. You have never seen The Sandlot, says Cousin Tower. Now I'm getting attacked in the comments on YouTube and on Zone TV. Will Bowling is entirely too close to my screen if you're watching on Zone TV, so you may remove yourself from the camera.
He's also very unhappy with you for not having seen The Sandlot.
Well, that's fine, but the way to get me to come to your side is not to stick your face closer to me. That's not how this works. 615-737-1045. He can yell at me during the commercial.
But it's like both sides of the spectrum, because Will Bowling is another baseball fanatic. It was passed down to him. It's generational. And then you and I, it's literally the complete opposite. Like, we grew up couldn't care less about baseball growing up because nobody passed it down to us.
Nobody told me I should care.
Of it, but yeah,
no,
you don't have
my
to.
My mom needed some way to shut me up in the early 90s. And she said, hey, this one about the baseball team and the Angels, this seems like a good idea. Why don't you go spend an hour and a half watching that? That's about as much connection as I have to the sport of baseball. 615-737-1045. We'll come back. We'll continue the conversation about preseason football, because we're live down here in Atlanta, courtesy of the fine folks at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. You can follow them on Instagram, by the way, for all of the great stuff that they have going on there. Make sure to check out their great offerings and the world's largest selection of bushwhackers. They're making our coverage possible down here. We'll come up and continue the conversation next on 104.5 The Zone.
This is where the Titans play. 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, mortgage rates have taken a nosedive back to the
roast me for the movies that I haven't seen. How do we get to this place where baseball movies or a lack of institutional knowledge about baseball movies is the thing that fires you guys the most up when there's a Titans game to be played later today? I know it's a preseason, but like during that last segment, Lucas, I checked my mentions during the commercial break, and people, I'm literally getting tweets that say you're dead to me because I haven't seen Field of Dreams or the Sandlot. I have seen The Natural. I feel like I had to watch The Natural in a class in college.
You never saw Major League?
I never saw Major League.
Major League is a good one. I think Major League might be my favorite. As a non-baseball person, I think that's my favorite baseball movie.
Okay. I just like, what do I care about all these movies? Because people are asking me, how are you even a sports broadcaster? And that, because I know we have callers on this. I want to get to the callers here in just a second. I know Dale in Mount Juliet has been waiting patiently, so we'll lead off with him. But like people like Alan Hilton in the chat on YouTube that says no Sandlot or Field of Dreams. Bro, what was your childhood? Buddy, you want to know what my childhood was? My childhood was Egypt, Paris, Germany, all over the world, a passport full before the age of 10 because my parents cared about stuff other than sports. There's nothing wrong with caring about sports. I'm not talking down to you. I'm not asking you how bad your childhood sucked because you didn't get to go to Disney World Paris when you were eight and a half and take screaming pictures in front of the Eiffel Tower. I'm not coming at you that way. I had a fantastic childhood. It's because I didn't see some crappy movie from the 80s or 90s that people are going to freak out about because this was the thing that you all watched together or whatever. No, my childhood was fine. I have I'm better off for it. Now, maybe I'm missing a few, normal notches on the belt that your average sports talk radio host might have, but we're not an average show, which is why we're good at this. So no, get out of here. What was your childhood? Dude, what was your childhood? I had a great childhood.
Yeah, what other sport does this? Right.
Baseball.
It's just baseball. Like my childhood also was great without baseball.
Yeah. Like it's not the end of the world. Who cares? If baseball was that important, they wouldn't be grabbing at the Barstool dollars trying to salvage their reputation with young people. And this is coming off one of the best events that they've done in probably 10 years off this Field of Dreams game. 615-737-1045. Let's go to Dale in Mount Juliet who wants to weigh in. Good morning, Dale. How are you?
I'm hot right now because it's a little steamy outside.
Well, I hope you continue to stay cool. I'm hiding out from the Atlanta sun in my hotel room right now.
Well, as long as this AC works in this truck, I'm good to go.
So, amen, brother.
But the movie I called about, it is a true story with a twist that you can watch, plus it's history of the World War II era, and it's called A League of Their Own.
Yes, A League of Their Own was actually filmed in my hometown in Evansville, Indiana, at Bosse Field. I know A League of Their Own. It's a fantastic movie.
There you go. But that's
100%.
all I had there.
Yeah, thank you for the call, Dale. Thank you. Stay cool, man. Keep that AC on in the truck. 615-737-1045.
I have not seen that one.
Rosie O'Donnell, Tom Hanks. It's got a great cast.
Oh, that's There's No Crying in Baseball.
No Crying in Baseball.
Yeah,
That's
I had
right.
not seen that one.
Yeah, no. So Bosse Field is. I actually played I did. That was the year after I graduated high school. My freshman year of college. My school played a throwback football game against a team from St. Louis at Bosse Field, wearing like old it was our version of the Field of Dreams game, right? Which was really, really unique. And Bosse Field is historic. It's where the Evansville Otters play, so they do not necessarily do the facility itself justice. But A League of Their Own is A League of Their Own and meth. That is what Evansville, Indiana is famous for.
And giant pork chops.
Not giant pork chops. Giant tenderloin sandwiches, but you don't know whether it's beef, pork, or it's just the size of a floor mat on a bun that's like normal. That's what we do in Indiana. 615-737-1045. When we we are breezing through this show today, live from Atlanta, courtesy of our friends at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Let's see. Preston Garvey says, my childhood was every Titans game, home, away, Super Bowl, London game when I was an adult. Yeah, listen, sports has this unique power, right? Since we're talking nostalgia, since we're talking about things Because Baby Formula says, sad when corn is the only reason people are talking about this boring ass sport. Yes, which is kind of the way that I turn, that's when I was scrolling through Twitter. I had no idea, I don't know anything about Field of Dreams. I don't know why the hell they're in Iowa. Like, what happened? Did they get the bus breakdown and they had to stop somewhere to play this baseball game? Like, what is happening? And I'm not paying attention to baseball coverage right now.
I think it is Ray Liotta's first ever movie, Field of Dreams.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he plays Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Okay, very nice. Ray Liotta, absolute stud. Although I did not like they released a new movie on HBO. That's the title is escaping me. It's got a killer cast. It's like it's I'm gonna forget the names. I'm terrible with names of actors, but Ray Liotta's in it, and it did not meet expectations.
He's going to be in the new Sopranos movie or the prequel movie.
How do we feel about that, by the way? Since I'm already distracted. Are you?
Yeah. If David Chase is in charge of it, yes, I'm incredibly excited.
That's a big part of this, right? That it's not changing directors and things like that. Because that's where things like Game of Thrones get absolutely botched at the end because, the dude who wrote the books never finished the books and they just let HBO finish them for it. And it all fell apart at the end. 615-737-1045. So we're going to get into, it's going to be all Titans all the way from here on out. Until Titans radio pregame coverage begins at 5:00 here on 104.5 The Zone. We're going to get into some conversations. We've talked about two positions specifically that I'm watching tonight between the quarterbacks and the running backs. We know Tannehill isn't going to start. We know that Darrington Evans and Logan Woodside are going to see a ton of work, and I'm curious to see what Matt Barkley looks like after not a ton of time working with this coaching staff and with these players. But there are three other position groups that I'm hyper-focused on tonight because I think they have massive impact and have a massive ripple effect on how the rest of this season plays out for the Tennessee Titans. Atlanta Falcons, we're doing the show live from Atlanta. There will be a bunch of storylines. I had forgotten, Lucas, that Tajay Sharp is now a Falcon.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea until I was reading my preseason release that they sent out for us. Titans PR always doing a great job to make sure that we stay as informed as humanly possible.
A lot of crossover here, right? Because you got Brian Hill, former Falcon on the Titans. Right. Obviously, Julio Jones on the Titans. Arthur Smith, Tajay Sharp.
I got a whole page. If you're watching on Zone TV. You got Julio Jones. Keith Carter was the offensive line coach for the Falcons. Luke Stocker was just in Atlanta a couple years ago. Ty Sambrailo was there for 3 years. Brian Hill, like you're talking about. Arthur Smith. I mean, it just go Dean Pease, Matt Pease, who's on the staff here in Atlanta. Dave Ragone was with the Titans for 3 years in like the early, what do we call it? Do we call it the tens? Like the 2010s?
The teens.
The teens, the early teens,
the 20 teens,
the 20 teens. That's annoying. Deontay Foreman is a Falcons running back. Like, you could go through both rosters and be like, because, at the end of the roster, all these guys have been in like 6 different spots and on the practice squad or something like that. A lot of storylines to get into. The 3 remaining on this roster, a lot of defense that we're getting ready to talk about, and the special teams specifically, because I think the 2 kickers that we're going to see today, I mean, I don't even know if if the Titans kicker of 2021 is on the roster that we'll see today. Coach Dave McGinnis coming up at 12:20 for his weekly installment with us as well. There's a Ferris wheel outside. I thought about taking Coach Mack on a Ferris wheel ride to do our segment, but alas, we are both busy today. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
3, the Pro Way, taking you inside the transition from retired athlete to business. Every Monday morning at 8 with Tennessee football legends Joey Kent and Kevin Dyson. 3, the Pro Way. Download now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts.
but I'm here. We're having a great time. We've had a fantastic show. Sports has been, our cup runneth over with content to get into over the course of the final hour. Preseason football will take place right here on these very airwaves. Titans Radio's coverage begins at 5 p.m. 3HL getting a little bit of an early day, but that's okay because we've all got football to discuss. Coach Dave McGinnis, is in Atlanta. He is not physically at my hotel room, but he will join us here in just a bit, and we will preview this game with Titans Radio's own head coach. Mac, the only former NFL head coach who's a part of a team broadcast. It's what makes Titans Radio, one of the many things that makes Titans Radio so special. So we can't wait to get into X's and O's with the man in black. In the meantime, we're taking your calls. 615-737-1045. What are you most looking forward to in this preseason game? We've talked quarterbacks. We've talked running backs. We've talked a little bit about the offensive line and Dylan Radins, what we're looking for from him tonight. But I guess the thing that's most important, the thing that's really going to dictate how this season goes, people aren't worried about the offense, right? I can't imagine that there are people out here wringing their hands about the idea that an offense that scored north of 30 points per game last year and added Julio Jones is the focal point of the concern. No, not by any stretch of the imagination, even as you're kind of wondering and waiting for the Julio watch to end and when he'll return to the practice field in something other than just standing behind the offense and watching a walkthrough, which has been the case. That's okay. You got plenty of time to worry about Julio Jones. What most concerns you, though, is the defense, of course. What's been the conversation of a year plus at this point, heading into last offseason, understanding that defenses were going to be hurting without these preseason reps, without form tackling drills, without contact. You saw the way that Shane Bowen struggled in his first year as a defensive play caller because he was not able to get to know his players in a conventional sense. You saw the way that defenses across the league, really offenses thriving because there was no longer a home field advantage. All these stadiums rather were largely quiet, allowing the offenses to operate at a high level as they would if they were in their own home stadiums when they were out on the road. Fans play a big role in many things, but certainly the advantage of home field was something that was not there to deter opposing offenses a year ago. So what are we watching on the defensive side of the ball tonight? Well, there's a great many things, of course, and you can answer the entire defense if you so choose. We'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1045. What are you focused most on about the defense at this point? I would say that for me, it starts up front. This defensive line is a bit of a fascination. Now, how much Jeffrey Simmons or Danico Autry does tonight remains to be seen. But the depth behind them and the guys who will play significant roles in this defense, not named Autry or Simmons, Teair Tart and Laurel Murchison. What is the trajectory of these two players? I know when I did my weekly 3HL hit on Monday that Don Davenport was looking for somebody to kind of poke holes in the Teair Tart hype machine because he's been a big story at camp with the way that he's physically transformed himself, having a normalized NFL offseason, being in a weight training program in the league for a full year, having, the opportunity to get more of his feet under him and find a role in this defense, find an opportunity. I would make the argument Teair Tart was their best rookie a year ago, even as Christian Fulton played more snaps. Chris Jackson played more snaps. They weren't necessarily good snaps all the time. Teair Tart did a lot more with less in a circumstance that you understood those rookies coming in a year ago were going to have a steeper learning curve than most. So now we have the opportunity to see a lot of these second-year guys like Teair Tart, a former undrafted rookie free agent, and Laurel Murchison, who has also benefited from off-season training, from just simply having gyms open and available to them in a way that during the pre-draft process a year ago, they were not. 615-737-1045. So Teair Tart, Laurel Murchison, Rashad Weaver I want to know, and the legal situation that kind of looms over Rashad Weaver is a substantial one, right? The things that he is accused of having done or having said are horrific by any stretch of the imagination. And he was, I had a little bit of and I need a little bit of a mea culpa, to be honest with you, because I had a bad reaction to the way that he commented the media when he, in his first opportunity to speak with us since those allegations came out, because it benefits him none, of course, legally by saying anything. And I was looking for more answer. I was looking for an answer, an explanation, or really just for him to denounce the kind of things that he was accused of doing. And instead, he had preferred to talk about football. Of course, his right. And in my role as a reporter, I should know better than to have an emotional response about something that, is completely understandable. I don't know what I would have liked him to say. I do know I would have liked him to denounce what he was accused of doing and the behavior that is associated with it. And he chose not to do that because it's not in his best legal interest to do that. So that court date looming over everything in October. In the meantime, he's on the practice field. In the meantime, he stands to play a substantive role in this defense if he can find ways to become that versatile piece across the defensive line and with the group of edge rushers. This is something that Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, spoke on the last time we heard from him, given that for all the ills that this defense has had, Shane Bowen has really been encouraged by what he's been able to see.
I'm encouraged by our energy and our competitiveness, and I think we're improving. I see little things from every player, like I told you guys last week. But again, it's day by day. We've still got a long way to go. We're 10 days in. Like, we haven't done anything yet. We got to keep improving, keep the focus on us, right? And then we'll see as we get into the season where this thing goes.
Shane Bowen talking about the encouraging signs. Lucas, do we have the clip on the turnovers as well? If not, that's okay. I think that's something good to bring up, though, because that has been a big story of camp, is the amount of turnovers that this defense is causing. All of these interceptions from Ryan Tannehill and the other quarterbacks, they vary, right? Whether it's a bad play by the offense or a good play by the defense. This was Shane Bowen on the amount of turnovers through camp that his unit has been able to cause.
Yeah, I think it's something we've been emphasizing to continue that turnover trend. It's a technique. Like, there's things that go into it. I think practicing it and seeing it carry over just like anything else, it's been encouraging. It's just got to continue. Like, we can't lose sight of it. We got to be able to carry it through all the way through up until that first game, and then obviously once the season gets here. But
that's Shane Bowen talking about the turnovers that his defense has been able to find so far through camp. Edge rushers, defensive backs. That's going to be the primary focus for me. I'm also excited. Listen, I'm excited to watch all of these guys. And I know that sounds cliche. I know that, because I've been oftentimes dismissive of somebody like a Nick Westbrook-Akina, who struggles to catch the football, or Jared Pinkney, who has been very, very underwhelming so far in camp. But top to bottom, this roster, I'm excited to see, how the observations we've made at camp, what we've seen at camp, how much we've talked to these guys doing the radio show out at camp, how much of a step they've taken and who doesn't take that step, and how this kind of narrows the storyline, how this kind of advances the narrative around this year's team. Tommy Hudson at the tight end position. Where is his role? Does he have one? Is Miller Forrestall, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Alabama, at that same position? Is he able to find a roster spot, or does he have enough potential to merit a practice squad, a practice squad place at the end of the year once they have to make their roster cutdowns? I maintain Briley Moore, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Kansas State, who tore his ACL early on in camp. He would have been a good candidate as one of these guys to make the roster as a fringe player. But from top to bottom, I'm really excited to watch this team and to see where the growth and development comes. Now, specifically, though, the edge rushers, the defensive line, and the secondary are going to be a continued story until such time as we see, the full measure of them with Bud Dupree and Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry. Again, not knowing how many starters are going to play and how many starters even made the trip, for the purposes of trying to keep their numbers down and limit travel. I would imagine that I don't know that Ryan Tannehill didn't come down to Atlanta, but certainly Ryan Tannehill and Caleb Farley aren't playing. So what benefits them? I mean, Farley, you understand it benefits him to go through the routine of pregame, but if he's not participating in the game, it's understandable if they would leave somebody like that at home. But then there's the kickers. The kickers are an obsession. I mean, so much so that it is a focal point of practice every day. When all of the media vultures, we all gravitate towards the sideline because it's the end of a particular 11-on-11 session, and they're going to kick field goals, and they're going to square off, whether it's McCann or formerly Blake Haubeil, or now with Sam Ficken, who has come in to this roster and looks to kind of increase the level of competition. They rattle them off one and then the other. They alternate turns. The kickers make their kicks or miss their kicks, and we tweet out the statistics, right? It is something that's going to hover over this franchise like a bad smell until such time as they can resolve it. Whether the kicker for 2021 is even on the roster is something that has to be considered, as we've talked about before. Mickey Ryan on Blaine and Mickey pointing out that they would have to guarantee somebody like Stephen Gostkowski's contract if they brought him in prior to the regular season beginning. So are they just trying to bide their time, knowing that Gostkowski is a proven vet, a proven pro, and somebody who, once he relaxed a little bit, started to settle in, coming off of the surgery at the end of his New England career and how things kind of sputtered for him at the start, knowing that they have that just down the road in Franklin, as Mike Vrabel put it, available to them at week 2? Are they just trying to get through camp with these guys to avoid the financial implications that would come with somebody like a Stephen Gostkowski? It's possible. And maybe the moves that they've made to add a specific kicking coach will be able to maximize the assets they have. It's something that's going to continue to be a conversation until such time as they find a resolution. And if the resolution's not good enough, you can bet we're going to talk about it some more. We'll talk about all of the things preseason with Titans Radio's head coach, Coach Dave McGinnis, will join us coming up next for his weekly installment. He's in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta. Well, I'm in Atlanta courtesy of Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Coach Mack will be on the call, of course, tonight with Mike Keith, Amy Wells, Rhett Bryan, killing it. We'll talk to him next. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Inside and outside the locker room, we got you covered with the best Titans training camp coverage.
Your home for Titans football.
And flagship for Titans Radio. 104.5 The Zone.
Radio, presented as always by Farm Bureau Health Plans, like an extra set of pads. They've been protecting Tennesseans since 1947. Visit them at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Mac, my man, how we living on this beautiful day in Atlanta?
Well, good afternoon, Buck. Yeah, I mean, it's all good. Just making some last-minute preparations here, getting ready to do the broadcast because every broadcast on Titans Radio, with Mike Key's standards, we bring our best always. We owe it to our listeners, we owe it to our affiliates, we owe it to our fans, and so we've had several meetings already, and so it may be a preseason game, but Titans Radio is always on their game, and that's what we're going to do.
You're damn right. Philip Noel, Rhett Bryan, Amy Wells, the whole crew. So who is the most manic on game day, Mac, among your crew? Who is the person who is the most high-strung?
There's nobody manic. There is nobody manic because everybody knows what they're doing. I mean, it's a consummate group of professionals. I mean, we all have fun when it's time to have fun, but during the game there is no panic and nobody's manic because everybody knows exactly what they're doing, and I mean everybody fits together so well, and that's why it's pretty much a seamless broadcast. But because of course Mike and I are reacting to everything that goes on the field, but what's going on behind us, with as you mentioned, Philip Noel and Brad Willis and Rhett Bryan, everything that they're doing radio-wise, and production-wise is amazing because, I mean, Brad Willis and Philip, they're all involved in timeouts and watching, when the timeouts are taken and watching the TV signals and working commercials. And there's a lot going on up there. So, but, I mean, look, 5 seasons ago, I joined a very, very professional group. So it's really cool. It's a lot of fun.
No question about it. We're looking forward to hearing Titans Radio's coverage beginning at 5 p.m. Central Time today. So, Mac, we know that Ryan Tannehill will not be making the start. Obviously, we anticipate seeing a ton from Logan Woodside and Matt Barkley. What, I guess, for the quarterbacks as a head coach approaching preseason game number 1, are you looking to emphasize with players at that position?
Well, we got to see if they can operate the offense, and they'll both get equal their chances at it tonight. And it's important, Buck. It's important for them. That's why I say when I started in this league, I really didn't know what preseason was about until I figured out that people's livelihoods are on the line, and knowing how important it is to to all of these players, regardless of whether they're brand new in the league or they're trying to stay in the league and establish it. So they will get their chances, and to be able to operate the offense against an unfamiliar opponent is critical. And so they will be put through their paces tonight. And really, they have to perform, and we know that some of the frontline players aren't going to play, which is fine. I mean, these young players, they're going to get their chances, and Matt Barkley's been in the league, but he's brand new to here, and so both of those guys will get an extreme number of reps tonight, and I'm looking forward to watching them, and it's going to be important for their futures here as to how they perform in this preseason.
What kind of differentiates these two players, other than Barkley's vastly more expansive role as a starter and with NFL reps? What kind of separates these two guys at that position?
Well, I think that's the major separation, in my mind, and just seeing Barkley at practice. Of course, I vetted him, coming out of USC. I mean, he was a guy that understood how to spread the ball around. He was always a very accurate guy. I think Logan Woodside may be a little more, athletic, being able to make the unscheduled play. But they're both, extremely smart quarterbacks. Logan Woodside's been here in this system, so he's got a little bit of a leg up on that. And I would say that Matt Barkley brings a leg up because of his experience. And so it's going to be important for both of them, throughout the process. I mean, you've been there every day at practice. You've been watching practice. Now, Barkley hasn't been there very long, but you've watched Logan Woodside for a while. But these times when you're going against an opponent or in a different colored jersey are very, very important for both of them, Buck.
Without question, Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. I think, Mac, there's so many. I'm so excited to watch these storylines across every position advance, but one that's been such a cool one to follow so far, at least at training camp, is Marcus Johnson. He's in his 5th year. He's talking to us at practice. I guess that would have been on Wednesday, about how sometimes it's just bad luck with the way that he's bounced around. He's finally got a handle on some soft tissue injuries that he struggled with over the course of his career. This camp, he's been healthy and he's made plays. What are your observations from Marcus Johnson and that wide receiver group specifically? What are you guys focusing on the most?
Well, I mean, Marcus Johnson to me, and I mean that's a great illustration of a guy that's that's trying to find his place. And you see stories like this all around the National Football League. But guys that sometimes they just don't quite slot in to where they've been, and they keep moving around the league. But you move around the league because, somebody is seeing something in you. And just because you get released from a team doesn't really mean you can't play in this league. It just means you can't play at that place at that time. And so he's clearly taking advantage of it, and this is going to be a big preseason for him. I'm looking forward to watching him because, it's when you're a veteran, you've got a little bit of an advantage in this type of situation because you've been through preseason. You understand, what it's about. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him, again, go against some people that he's not familiar with as far as their habits and the way they cover. And it's going to be important for him.
With Des Fitzpatrick, Mac, they're asking him to work at all three positions at wide receiver, right? And I was kind of reminded of the way that in 2019, Tajay Sharp's versatility certainly kept him around on the roster, and he performed well when he was here in Tennessee, now with the Falcons. But that was something that they also asked of Tajay Sharp. How difficult is that for a player to master, understanding that Tajay being a fifth-round pick, Des Fitzpatrick being a fourth-round pick? How difficult is it for a rookie like that coming in and being asked to learn all three positions across the formation at receiver?
Well, it's challenging at the start. I mean, it's challenging at the start, but that's part of it, is being able to see, if they're able to do that. And clearly, they've had indications that he's able to do that, but it's a challenge, a little bit, to be able to not only get in the groove in one position, but to play several, because there's nuances to each and every one of those positions, just not only from left to right, but also moving in the slot. But a great axiom in the National Football League that I learned very early in my career is the more you can do, the longer you stay. And that's a big, big thing. And so, yeah, he's working through that. And there's, when I watch practice, I study practice. Where I watch it from the film, from the film boat there and the high angle, wide angle end zone, to be able to just watch. I'm watching practice film during practice, and I want to see what they are doing, strategically. I like seeing what they're doing, with their people as far as their placements, and you can watch a guy like this move around in those various different spots, and you can tell that he's still trying to find his footing. But it's a patience game too, that it takes. But they've got confidence in him that he can do that, or they would not be asking him to do that.
Coach, to go back to the quarterbacks for a moment, we talk all the time about the way Logan Woodside's been able to ward off contenders for the backup role, largely due to the time he spent in this system, his knowledge of the playbook. Then we just played some audio from Matt Barkley discussing how difficult it is to digest a playbook at this stage in training camp, a new face within a team. So you figure they wouldn't ask the same thing of those two guys, right, when it comes to Woodside versus Barkley. As a head coach and a play caller, how do you handle that with two guys that are in completely different stages of their knowledge of the playbook as far as Barkley versus Woodside and what they're going to ask of those guys tonight?
In their quarterback meetings, they have sat down, with both of these guys and have gone through the game plan. Now, look, it's going to be a basic game plan, but they've gone through the plays, and that's what you do with your quarterbacks. You sit down a day before, 2 days before, and say, okay, look, here's our list. What do you feel comfortable with? This is what we feel. This is what we're going to do this game as far as personnel-wise. This is what we're going to do down and distance-wise. Now, talk to us about what you feel confident in, what you feel comfortable with. And to your point, I mean, Logan Woodside has got a better grasp of it. Now, what Matt Barkley has, he has concepts, because concepts, are basically, they can transfer around the league, but language does not. Language does not, and nuance does not. So they will have sat down with both of these guys, with the game plan and with the call sheet, and have gone over with both of them, what do you feel more comfortable with, and give them several selections as far as just, looking at down and distance, field position, all of those things that come up in a game, and then they'll be constantly talking to them during the game. But that's how they handle it. They don't just say, okay, let's just spin the wheel and whatever comes up, that's what we're going to call.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Pre-game coverage beginning at 5 p.m. Central Time with the great Titans radio crew. The first of the season, we're fired up for it. Mac, I want to see today is about depth. The preseason is about depth first and foremost, and understanding how they're going to fill out the roster. Depth is a concern no matter what position you're looking at. But for me, I'm focused mainly on the defensive line and the outside linebackers tonight. What position group on that side of the ball is kind of drawing your attention?
Well, I mean, that's a good place to start. I mean, it really is, because you're going to, especially defensively and up front, the positions that you have mentioned, Buck, whether you're playing a 3-4 or a 5-2, you need people that can roll in there. And so you've targeted two positions that are very important to watch. The depth. Now, depth across the league is a problem. All right, just because of the way the salary cap is set and just because of the way you put rosters together now. So it's very important, especially during this time, to be able to find some guys that you feel like might be able to find their way and work their way in there, either immediately, to be part of what you're going to do starting the season off, or guys that might warrant a practice squad spot that you think, might could take some time to get up to speed. And with the new rules now where you can activate them more quickly than you could, just like we did last year, that's what you're looking for. But I think both of those positions defensively, because those are the positions that you rotate on defense, is the dudes up front. And so both of those positions down front and then on the edge, I think are very important to watch tonight.
Mac, I know that versatility is something that they focus on no matter what position we're talking about, but specifically up front, what are Teair Tart and Larrell Murchison as players? Because I want to understand better what their role in this defense may actually be.
Well, Teair Tart's more of a shade. I mean, he's more of a guy that's going to be on an outside shoulder of the center, inside shoulder of a guard. He's more of a shade. He's a bigger, wider body in there. Larrell Murchison's got a little more length. I mean, he could play out on a 5 technique, and then he can move down inside, mostly as a 3 technique. That's basically what he is. They're two completely different body types.
Right.
That you look at, and when you're running multiple fronts, that's what you're looking for and what you need. But both of those guys, I mean, this is a big preseason for both of those guys too, because Teair Tart came along a little bit at the end and had some nice snaps in there, and so did Murchison. But when you're talking about rolling guys in there in games that make a difference, you want guys that once they come in, that you don't notice a big drop off, because that's important. When you're rolling people. And so they both play they can both play the interior. I would just say Murchison might be a little bit more versatile just because he's got a little more length and can slide a little bit further outside to that 5 technique sometimes, from the spot, that 3 technique over the guard.
Coach Dave McGinnis here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Mac, I want to see as much as humanly possible from the rookie corners. We know that Caleb Farley won't play tonight. We assume that Elijah Molden will see some kind of work over the course of tonight's game. In that secondary, how do you see them adapting to the skill set of the players right now? We know that Molden has been a slot player, a successful slot player coming out of Washington. We know that Chris Jackson has played in the nickel for them previously, playing more defensive snaps than any rookie for this team last year. How have you seen that kind of competition develop in camp?
Well, they really haven't worked Christian at the slot, in this camp yet, because he's seen some. That's where Elijah Molden has been working. Chris Jackson has been working there. So my thought process always on the staffs I was on, as a position coach on defense and as a coordinator, then as assistant head coach and a head coach all through my career, what you want to see your secondary be able to do, you're going to put them in as many man-to-man situations as you can, because that's really what you want to see, because there's no game planning for this game. And so, what you're going to do, you're going to cut down your calls so that they can line up and get ready to play, so that when they're on that turf, they're ready to play when the ball's snapped. I'm sure Arthur is going to give them, several personnel groups. He will give them motion. He will give them motions to reset and those types of things. And then there's going to be play action coming off of it. And so you like to put your players in these games into stress situations, because that's what you're trying to find out, which a lot of times means, quite a bit more man-to-man that you might call rather than you might call in a game, because you're going to mix it up when you're game planning. So I want to see all of those guys how they accept the challenge of going against somebody different, in those man-to-man situations, and then just see, basically, how they tackle, how they form their leverage at the third level. All of those things are very, very important at an elevated speed. You can go fast in practice, but the speed elevates in a preseason game, just like the speed elevates from a preseason game to a regular season game, and then it really elevates into the playoffs. And so these things were important tonight. But if, my experience, especially in the first ball game, would not give them a whole lot to think about in the back end, and just want to see them work technique, and then just want to see them finish on the ball.
Mac, what time you get in the stadium today?
Well, Rhett and Philip and Brad Willis are already over there. We had a meeting last night. A little bit after dinner, and then they're already. Was
this
over
before or
there.
after the Braves game? Do you have the meeting at the Braves game? What are you meeting?
No,
you guys had so much to do last night.
They were done with the Braves game. They were done with the Braves game. They had to get the Braves game in. The Braves needed a few more runs across the plate.
Tough one.
But then we had a meeting, and then they had to get over there and get things set up. There's so much that goes into setting up a booth, especially a booth on the road. I mean, it's amazing, and I was totally amazed when I first started doing this. And they have it synchronized down to how they set it up and how they break it down. The first broadcast I was on is at the Jets in preseason in New York, and they started to break down and said, and I was kind of standing there, when I'm through, and I said, "Can I help?" And they said, "We tell you how you can help. Don't touch anything, and go down and tell the bus not to leave us. That's how you can help us, Coach Mack." So that's what I did, and that's what I still do.
We love to see it, Coach Mack. I can't wait to see you at the stadium, and can't wait to listen to Titans radio coverage starting at 5 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone and across the Titans radio network. Have a great game, Mac.
Yeah, you're doing the pregame with us, right?
That's right.
Jimmy White coming in. Well, great.
Yeah, I'm on Rhett Bryan's email list. I'm gonna be in a booth for the first time, so I got to try not to embarrass myself today.
I look forward to seeing you, Buck. That'll be great. See you, man.
No doubt about it. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, the best in the business, the only former NFL head coach on any team's broadcast across all 32 NFL teams. We will come back, wrap up the show next. We got some polls that I got to pack up and get out because I got a late checkout. Lucas, I don't know if you saw somebody, I deadbolted the door behind me, but somebody was definitely trying to get in the hotel room. So I'm going to go check and make sure that they knew that I had a late checkout time. And we'll do that during the commercial break. Hopefully I'll be back in time for polls.
The Titans and Falcons go at it in the first preseason game of the year. Continuous coverage all day today.
Into the end zone. Touchdown, Titans!
With kickoff at 6 p.m. on your home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone.
it's been. Thank you guys so much for making this show as much fun as it is for Lucas, for me, for everybody involved here at 104.5 The Zone. Thanks to Scoreboard Bar and Grill, who makes this show possible, live from Atlanta and almost every day next week, Tuesday through Friday, live from Tampa Bay with this Titans preseason coverage. Scoreboard Bar and Grill, the world's largest selection of bushwhackers, football, music, more. What could you ask for out there at Scoreboard Bar and Grill? All right, so the poll questions is I'm getting ready to be kicked out of my hotel room, which means it's time for me to go to the stadium. And thank God the show is almost over. So in the meantime, let's rattle off some polls.
I don't know who you are, but I know what it's time for. A poll update on the Buck Reising Show. Here's a young man with a very particular set of skills. With the final numbers, here's Buck Reising Show correspondent and producer, Lucas Panzica.
Which Titans player can benefit the most from the 2021 preseason? Caleb says lots of guys could be the answer to this one. If I got to pick just one, it's Caleb Farley, but this preseason is invaluable for a lot of groups. No Caleb Farley tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different places. The right answer is all of them, right? Like you're watching all of these positions to see how they develop, where the growth has been, who is really struggling and fighting to find a spot on this roster if one is there for them to be found. And at this point, you know, everybody, I understand why Caleb Farley is such a fascination and why Titans fans would be so infatuated with him. But you have to understand that if he's not physically ready to go, the preseason is not important. And even if he's not physically ready for the regular season, that's okay too.
Alan says Dylan Radins, and that's my pick, given what Mike Vrabel has told us about him, his inconsistencies as he struggles to get acclimated in camp.
Yeah, I'm curious about Dylan Radins, right? Because we talk about Farley only playing one football game in the past calendar year. Well, not playing any football games in the past calendar year because he opted out in 2020. But Radins may as well have, right? One football game at North Dakota State is all but an opt out. Him and Trey Lance both. How he's been asked to move across this offensive line from where he has played almost his entire collegiate career. He's been a left tackle. So now they're asking him to completely change up what he does by moving him to either the right guard or right tackle spots. And he's playing both. But at this point, it seems like he's best suited for interior offensive line play. I mean, I think if I have to pinpoint one guy that I would be most interested to watch and who can benefit the most, I would think it'd be Rashad Weaver. Right? Rashad Weaver is going to play a role in this defense. They need him to play a role in this defense, whether it's outside on the edge or whether he gets to play a little inside, given that they asked him to do that at the Senior Bowl when they worked him out.
Yeah, very important for Rashad Weaver. Farsender says Dez Fitzpatrick. DJ says Racey McMath. He wants to look at the wide receiver depth on this football team, but obviously McMath important on special teams. Michael says Tucker McCann. I think everybody has their eyes on the kickers. And as I scroll up, Beavis Knows says Darrington Evans may be the most playing time he gets all year, which I guess I would push back against.
Well, no, that's probably true, right? I mean, it's not like Derrick Henry. I mean, and like God forbid something happening to Derrick Henry. This is probably going to be the most substantial work that Darrington Evans gets.
Yeah, I guess. But I don't want to diminish. I think we're going to see Darrington Evans a lot this season.
It's possible. He physically has to hold up, and I think he can be a creative addition to this offense to make it even more dynamic than it was a year ago, because that's the one thing that they lacked, a legitimate threat out of the backfield. And I don't know if it was because of lack of practice time and lack of preseason and offseason work, but the screen game really never got right for the Titans. That was where the bulk of Derrick Henry's receiving production comes from, where he can break these things for 50, 60, 70 yards. But how they kind of implement Derrick back into the screen game and how they continue to improve upon something that worked for them in 2019, but really took a step back in 2020. I think Evans is a part of that.
Then we asked, which position group do you have your eyes on tonight? Really, the majority of answer here are kicker and defensive back.
Front five for me. So that's defensive line and edge rushers. I know that's technically two positions, but you heard Max say it yourself. It's a 5-2 defense. So you got 5 up front, 2 inside linebackers, or a linebacker and a box safety. I am most interested in the depth there. I'm most interested to see how those parts work in conjunction with each other, how these guys like Laurel Murchison and T.R. Tart, how they look against foreign competition, for lack of a better terms, people that they haven't been. You learn tendencies of the opponents that you're going against when you see them as often as you do with your own teammates in training camp. How do they adapt and how do they adjust to seeing? They may have some film work on these players coming into the preseason game, but there will be some unknowns, some different wrinkles that are thrown out at them. And specifically up front, this is a team that desperately needs pressure, pressure from everybody who has an active roster spot on the 46-man game day roster once the regular season gets here. I have to see pressure across the board from the front five on defense, no matter who's in there and how late in the game.
Have you ever had food at a strip club? 76% of voters say no. We got a lot of recommendations in the replies here. Rob says, does candy count? Which is just gross.
Yeah, really. Some of you cannot be trusted with us having fun on the radio.
Candy
show.
with a K, it should be noted.
Yeah, well, this reminds me of a story and I won't say who this person is or what their relationship to me is, but I went to a Buffalo Wild Wings one time with a person who heard the name of our waitress and then asked me. He's hard of hearing, this particular individual, and he did not think that the waitress could hear him. So after the waitress said her name and then left our table, he said, "That sounds like a name that Destiny sounds like a name that was conceived in a strip club." And the lovely waitress, Miss Destiny, heard him, and it was a very awkward lunch encounter after that.
Ugh. Lucas Davis with the gif of Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec enjoying the breakfast buffet at a strip club.
Yeah, and technically I cheated because I got food from a strip club. I didn't go. Well, I can't. I mean, I'm not going to go to. Can you imagine if it showed up on my zone expense report? Yeah, spent $1,500 last night in Magic City, and $30 of that was on wings.
That's how you relaxed. I cracked up at. I wanted to start the show that way. When the first thing I said to you, "Good morning, Buck. Time to relax."
You know what? I deserve it. I really do. This is why, and they don't advertise with this show, but this is why I'm a diehard Marriott person, because they treat me right. Because when I walk into the hotel room, my television is telling me it has my name, it knows me my name, and it is telling me that I need to relax. And they're right, because I desperately need to relax for as much as we're getting ready to work for football season. But that's okay, because we're excited about it.
Do cornfields equal romance in baseball? 66% say yes.
What is the other 40 some odd percent of the audience say?
34%. There you go again, trying to do math.
This is why we shouldn't do math on the air. How bad is that? Every time we screw up the number.
Don't get a single thing right.
God, what is wrong with us? This is why we talk for a living and don't do something that actually matters. Yeah, there's something about cornfields apparently that brought out the romantic side of all the sports fans with the baseball game last night. The Field of Dreams game was cool. And if you missed any of the interviews, Jared Diamond, who wrote about this for the Wall Street Journal, was great. Go check that interview out and really go read the article on Tim Anderson, because I think that's probably my favorite baseball player right now.
Who wins in a fight, Young-Ho Koo or Sam Ficken? 69% nice say it's Koo.
You don't mess with Young-Ho Koo.
We very much look forward to that pregame brawl on the field between kickers.
Right, when Sam Ficken is out there like kicking like kicking dirt at the umpires, out there kicking turf up on the Falcons logo at midfield. You know what I'm really hoping is the case. Are we done with polls?
One more.
Okay.
This was not one of our polls, actually. It was South Texas Titan. Would you Buck? Excuse me. Would you? He tagged Buck. But would you punch 500 kids in the face for a Titans Super Bowl? 77% say yes.
Did you just have to hit the dump button on yourself?
No, I said Buck. That's your name. Your name is Buck. He tagged you. Buck Reising poll question. Would you punch 500 kids in the face for a Titans Super Bowl? 77% say yes. Let's get the hell out of here.
Blaine and Mickey, they're up next. I'll see you on Titans pregame.
The 3HL, cheerleading all SEC teams.
That's how all Auburn people know how to spell Auburn. A-U-B-U-R-N.
It's the dumbest cheer I've ever heard. S-L-A-Y. I mean, you can do that with anything.
Don't make me take you out.
Get them, Babs.
I mean, you could do that for anything, Babs.
It's not the right intonation. It's not the right number of letters. It doesn't have the tradition.
F-O-O-T.
S-U-C-K-I-T. Jerk.
Today, starting at 3 on 105.